cosplay commissions and how to start your own business doing cosplay design. My name's Mikomi-Chan, and I actually own my own costume design business. It's called Mikomi's Costumed World. I make cosplays for people all over the world, and I've done some things for film, and I do some things for like magazines and different cosplay companies and fabric companies and stuff. So I do a little bit of everything as far as costume design is concerned. This panel is geared towards craftsmen who are comfortable in their chosen crafts and are thinking of creating art for others. And also people who make either costume accessories or full costumes and are looking to do private costumes and seamstress work professionally. So here are some things to ask yourself when you are considering to open up commissions. First of all, you need to be genuinely happy and proud of your own work. If you don't like your work, you can't expect other people to like it enough to pay for it. So that's that's a really important thing that you need to be thinking about. And then you need to determine whether or not your art is high enough quality to take commissions. Some people start commissions because like their friends will, like they made a few costumes for their friends, and so they think, oh well, I made costumes for some friends, like I can like charge people and make them for other people, when in actuality like their costumes will fall apart like the day after you wear them at a convention. And like if you're going to do commissions, like your art has to have durability as well as be like technically sound. You need to determine what your crafting strengths are and what your weaknesses are. Not everybody is going to be good at the same thing. For instance, like what my company specializes in, personally, I specialize in leatherwork, woodwork, and bodysuits. So they're like three pretty different things. I don't really do much outside of that. I will do occasional other sewing projects for people, but they're not going to be like super advanced because I'm not comfortable working with things outside of my skill set. And then another thing you have to determine is how much time you want to dedicate to making commissions. The most important thing that I hope you guys get out of this panel is that you can always make more money and everything, but you can never make back time. Like whenever you spend your time working on like doing photo editing or making a costume for yourself or a friend or styling a wig, like that's time you've lost. Like you can never get more time and everything, and life is fleeting, so you have to like dedicate your time to what you deem is important and everything. And building your own business takes up a lot of time, and you'll have to make like a lot of sacrifices, and so you have to determine like what type of growth you want your company to have. And then tying in with that is you need to figure out an end goal for your business. Like, do you want your commissions to be just like a side thing so you can like pay for the conventions you go to? Like, okay, well, Kantaicon will cost me like $200 to go to, so I just need to do like one bodysuit commission for somebody and I'll have made $200, so I can just like scratch that off and not have to worry about my monthly budget. Do you want it to be your full-time job where you pay your bills, you pay back your student loans with it, you like travel, you have business cards, you work with production companies? Like all of this needs to be taken into account when you think about starting a cosplay business. Another thing you need to do is you need to garner your clientele. Unless you have a dedicated fan base for your own cosplay, it can be hard to get clients at first, and that is completely normal. Which of you guys have ever gone to like the cosplay commission group on Facebook or something? Not really? No? Okay. Well, it has about like 10,000 people in it. It's one of the bigger groups on Facebook for cosplay. And there are literally hundreds of people in that group who do costume commissions and stuff like that. But then when, like, how it works is somebody who, like, a potential customer, they want a costume made for them. They post reference images of the costume they want, and then they post their budget and their deadline and stuff, and then people go at it like piranhas, basically, and try to get hired for the job. A lot of people in the group, they don't have a huge social media presence. They might have like a few hundred followers or anything. They're not going to have like Yaya Han levels of followers. They're not going to have like 1 million people or even like 100,000 or like 10,000 followers. They're only going to have like max is normally between 500 and like 1,000 people. And I don't know if you guys ever look at like regular business Facebooks, but they normally have a few thousand and everything for like an actual established company. So a lot of people will look at the numbers and they'll be like, oh, well, this person obviously isn't a trustworthy person to commission from because they only have like 100 likes on Facebook. Like, they may have made like one costume in their life. And so like, it's gonna be really hard for you to get business that way and everything. But then like, once you like start building up your clientele and everything, then those numbers will increase, and I believe clients speak louder than numbers and stuff. Like if your clients like publicly post about how awesome your work is and like praise you and share it and like recommend you to other people, then I feel like that's better than having Facebook likes or Instagram followers. With that being said, word of mouth is super, super useful. I have had, I'd say at least like 10 clients in the past like 2 years, solely on the fact that like somebody who I previously did a commission for told other people about my work and was like, hey, you should hire Mikomi to make your costumes. They're awesome. And she does really good work and adheres to deadlines and stuff. So like that's also really good if you don't have the social media presence, just like having friends that know your work and know your quality or previous customers and stuff. And then another thing, once your company, if you want your company to be like local versus like essentially like internet only, local advertisements could be very beneficial for you. A lot of costumers and seamstresses that aren't in the cosplay community that do things for like Renaissance fairs and like local theater companies and whatnot, they will actually put ads in like the paper around like Halloween time, or they'll have maybe like a radio ad, or like, you know, in malls, like where they'll have like display windows. I actually know some people who will display some of their better costumes in the window with like contact information. Like, hey, if you want a custom made costume for whatever you need it for, like contact me here and stuff, or like local magazines, stuff like that. Because it's always nice to have local clientele, especially for costuming, because then you can do fittings in person. Because I don't care what anybody says, like whenever you get measurements sent to you, they're never right. It doesn't matter if they had another professional take them. Like everybody takes measurements differently and everything. So it's always useful to have like your client in person so you can fit them before you finish the costume and ship it out halfway around the world to find out it doesn't fit. That's never happened to me, but it has happened to some of my friends, and it is not exactly fun. And then talking to your clientele, does anybody here have issues talking to complete strangers? I do. I have like, I'd say a very mild case of social anxiety. And it's really weird for me to talk to people completely out of the blue and like talk up what I do for a living and everything. And so you just, it like takes a lot of practice, and like you just like literally practice makes perfect, all of the experience and everything that you can get. Something that I've seen people mess up on is I've seen a lot of people talk on public forums about their pricing and timetables, materials, etc., like how they are specifically planned. Like they do all of the consultation work of a commission on a public forum, and that's not a good idea. Normally, if you're if you're in the consultation phase of a commission, you're past the whole, hey, I think your stuff looks cool, I'd like for you to contact me so we can talk about you making something for me. Like when you're past that stage and you're like talking about measurements, what fabrics you're going to use, what leather you're going to use, all that stuff. You want to keep that stuff in private. Not everybody in the world and their mom needs to know how you exactly plan on making this one costume for your client. It helps keep a lot of the drama out of there, and especially if you're doing like online stuff, like the online community is very petty, and like keeping everything as private as you can helps reduce the amount of drama that you can deal with. And then I like to I do my international clientele, I do exclusively through email. And what a lot of people need to realize is that if you're doing commissions and you're getting paid to do commissions, you're not doing them for free, it's a business arrangement and everything, and you need to treat it as such. Because like some commissions are worth like thousands of dollars and stuff. Like you're not going to be like, hey bro, sup, cool, thanks fam, when you're getting like measurements, or like when you're sending an invoice to a client. You need to use actual like business language. Generally speaking, whenever I'm talking to a client, even if I have met the client in person at a con, like they've gone to one of my panels, or like they've been following me on social media for my own personal cosplay work, I will never talk in anything lower than business casual to a person, no matter how many dozens of emails we send throughout the correspondence of like a 6 months pre-booking. Like it will always at least be business casual. Like I never use like slang or like hip terminology. I don't use any of that. I use like cut and dry language and everything, because a lot of people, like, they get really touchy in the cosplay community, like, well, I'm paying you to make something for me and you're not AliExpress, so I don't have that guarantee that you're gonna follow through. And if you can't create a simple sentence that doesn't exactly exude reliability, just throwing that out there. So try to do business casual. Sometimes when you get commissions booked, you end up getting booked by companies or like people outside of the cosplay world. I've actually been booked by a few professional like production companies and stuff. I actually recently made something for a film, like an indie film down in Atlanta. They're actually filming this weekend. And even though I knew the wardrobe supervisor personally, like it was a business arrangement and I had a contract I had to sign. So even though like we've known each other for 5 years and everything, like we still conducted everything on a completely professional level and everything. Like it wasn't like two best friends talking. So just like being able to separate that is really important when you get into like the business side of the industry. Another thing that's really important, and I've actually screwed up on this in the past, is you need to be able to keep your clients updated on any potential changes to their commission. Sometimes materials that you may have said were available to your client, like when you book that, like I book 6 months in advance for everything, just because I don't know what life's gonna throw at me. And for instance, my car broke down this summer and I had to get a completely new car. That took like 2 months out of my commission schedule, and in order to meet some of the deadlines that I had to meet, like it was really rough. I had to pull a few all-nighters and everything. Like I had to shipping things out, but I had time and everything because I did book so many months in advance. And I didn't keep my clients as updated as I should have on my personal life and everything. So occasionally I would get messages like, hey, I haven't received a progress picture in a while. And I can't really be like, oh, that's because I haven't worked on your costume in 3 weeks. You know, like if you let them know up front if something horrible happens in your personal life, normally the clients are super understanding and everything. Because I mean, it's a costume at the end of the day. It's not like you're creating the cure for cancer and everything, you get what I'm saying? Like normally they're pretty chill if you're upfront and like very transparent with stuff. Also, as far as long-term projects are concerned, keeping them updated with major progress steps is also a plus. I like to send pictures when I purchase materials, because I'm really big on purchasing the proper materials for the job. Like I don't use cotton for everything I make. Like I'll use like different types of leather, I'll use like different velvets and stretch fabrics, and I use, as long as if it's what I need, I'll use it. And a lot of people that will hire you to make commissions, they don't hire you because they can make it themselves and they're too lazy. They hire it because they don't know how to make it and everything. And a lot of the times I found my clients are actually like genuinely interested in what I choose to make the costumes out of because they have an interest in it. And so like I send them reference pictures of like the fabrics after I've like already had them cut and purchased and everything, so they can see how the colors combine and everything in case I need to make a last minute return, like, oh well, I don't like that shade of yellow, like could you like take it back before you start cutting into the fabric and get a different shade of yellow that matches better. So I always do that. Another thing is sometimes people demand progress photos every week. If you're not comfortable sending progress photos every week, like don't send them. Like just be upfront before they finalize their commission with you. I very rarely take progress photos of anything at all. Like I just forget, I'm too busy. And so like a lot of people have issues that I don't like provide progress photos like every so often. And I mean, like if a client specifically requests it, for instance, when you're making a bodysuit, I do a lot of bodysuits. I'm specifically sponsored by a fabric company to design bodysuits out of their fabric for like their advertising campaigns and stuff. So I do a lot of bodysuits. And bodysuits look really, really crappy when they're halfway made or when they are on a hanger. Like they just don't lay right because they're supposed to be form-fitting. And so they just like drape there and they look disgusting and it doesn't look right at all. And so I've had clients that are like, oh, well, I'd like to see like a finished picture of the costume before you send it to me. And I'm like, okay, it's gonna look horrible. I'm just letting you know. And I'll send something. They'll be like, oh my God, are you sure you got my measurements right? And I'll be like, I'm sure, I have an adjustable mannequin, I tried everything out, you're good, it's just it looks really bad unless it's on someone and everything. So like that's something that I'm aware of, where like a lot of clients, they're not aware that like certain things don't look right and everything. So like prefacing before you send the photo is, or like, also I mentioned earlier I do a lot of woodwork. I made this out of poplar, I do believe. Poplar, pine, something. It's not black walnut. I make all of my commissions out of black walnut because it's like sturdier, but this is for myself and I care less about what I make for myself than I do for my clients. And I do a lot of katanas. They're just like really plain looking before you paint them. And before you put like the hand guard on them, it's literally just like a slab of wood that's like not even shaped and everything. And some people will want like a progress picture of that just to prove like you're working on their commission, but then they'll see it and they'll get like super like worried about like it looking like crap, because a lot of people don't understand how like point A gets to point Z. Like they don't understand there are multiple steps and everything. So like just playing it by ear and making sure that both you and the client are comfortable and everything is really important. And that's a big thing about talking to your clientele. Okay. And keeping records. Who here knows anything about accounting? You're one step above me. I have my husband keep my books for me. I am literally the worst person on the face of the earth at keeping records of my expenditures. I'm really good at keeping track of what money comes into my business, but as far as like what leaves my business, I'm horrible. Like my husband had to design me like multiple idiot-proof spreadsheets, and he actually termed them idiot-proof. Like he put in the like programs and everything, so it even does the math for me and everything. Record keeping is like super important for a business. You should also, another thing that's really important if you want to keep your like previous clientele, like I have a lot of return customers and everything. I'm very fortunate in that my clients like what I make for them. So I have a lot of return clients, and you should keep their info for different things like their measurements, their shipping address, their PayPal address, and then like their timetables and deadlines and stuff like that. I just think it's really useful to have all of that info, because like they'll give you everything like at the like consultation stage of the commission, and then like 3 to 6 months later you'll have to scroll back through like 3 to 6 months of like emails or Facebook Messenger or something like that, and then you end up not being able to find it and you ask for it again, and that doesn't exactly look very professional. So just having it somewhere else where you can like easily look it up is very useful, I feel. You should also keep a ledger for any expenditures and incoming funds. How many people here have played Skyrim? Okay, you know in the Thieves Guild quest where like it's actually like a lot of side quests, but you basically go into people like business people's houses and you change their ledgers. You're basically changing what you need to do to like keep tabs and everything on everybody. It's really useful. Some people write it down. I used to write mine down and then I'd lose it because I'm very forgetful and I misplace things. And so I started putting it in my laptop and now I don't misplace it and everything. So like keeping it like wherever you feel like you're not gonna lose it is very useful. And I suggest keeping everything in an Excel spreadsheet and backing it up not just on your current laptop but also on like an external hard drive or to Google Drive or Dropbox something. I've actually had last year when I was in the middle of doing commissions, I was also in the middle of like, I guested at close to a dozen conventions last year, so I was like super busy. And I also did like loads of other stuff in the convention circuit as well. So I traveled at least like 1 to 2 weekends a month. And so I wasn't home very often, and my laptop just broke last year and I didn't have my records backed up and everything. So come tax season, I was like scrambling to get everything around and it was pain, and it added like, I'm pretty sure I aged like 3 years trying to find all of my receipts and everything to submit to the government and everything. Like it was horrible. And so you want to make sure you like back up everything. So if something horrible happens, like your laptop dies, you have somewhere else where you can go and everything. And then when to register for an official business license. Has anybody here ever owned a small business like an LLC or anything? Andrew, you have. That's awesome. I didn't know that.
My dad's air conditioning service.
I learned something about you.
Yeah, my dad does air conditioning and nails.
Multi-talented. But a big decision for a lot of commissioners that I came to, I had to make this decision last year. Once you've done commissions for a while and you have a steady flow of clients, it may be time to consider looking into a small business license. I don't suggest starting out with a small business license just because you have to officially start paying taxes on your business, and it is a pain if you don't do it at least part-time and everything. Like if you do have a table at a convention, you do like artist alley stuff, I do think as soon as you start doing that, you do need to start getting a licensure and everything. Like that's super important. But if you're like making like one costume every 3 months for somebody, like you're not making enough where you legally have to report taxes on it. So in that case, it's not really worth it, especially since you have to pay for a business licensure because you have to register it with the government and get a tax pin, and it's a pain. But like if you do plan on doing it for a few years, like commissions, and you do it on a relatively regular basis, like to the point where it's like a supplemental income, not like you can live off of this, but you can still pay, like if you need to, you can pay rent, or you can pay like electricity or a car payment or student loans or something like that, not like all your bills, but like some of them off of it, then you definitely need to strongly consider getting a business licensure, or just so you're not breaking any laws. It really depends on your state laws. I found out the laws for Maryland are different than Virginia, and I started doing commissions when I lived in Maryland, and they had less strict laws than Virginia did. So when I moved to Virginia, I had to re-educate myself on local government and everything. And it turns out Virginia's a lot more strict. So I ended up having to get a licensure when I didn't think my business was big enough, but apparently it was by the state of Virginia. And then it's all determined on once you make over a certain dollar amount of profit. And the reason why I say you really need to look into this stuff is because the IRS, they have people, and if they can tell out when you're filing your family taxes and everything, if they can tell like you're spending more money than you're bringing in, like if they feel like auditing you, they can find out pretty easily that you do things, and then you don't want to find out, like you don't want them to find out that you've been like doing things under the table, because then you have to pay fines or like back taxes and stuff. And it's like, it can be really bad for your credit score. Like it could keep you from like buying a car in the future. It can keep you from like renting an apartment or getting a mortgage. So like, that's why I'm leading this panel, to keep you guys from like breaking laws and stuff. But something that I found out for a commission business, I really like LLCs. An LLC is what a lot of like the people in the Artist Alley run. It's the LLC stands for a limited liability company. Limited liability companies basically means that if somebody sues your company, they can't take your own personal assets. They can only sue you for what your actual company is worth. So my husband does, he works in an accounting office, so he makes a lot better money than I do doing costume commissions and stuff. That's just the nature of the beast. If I registered as a different type of business where I'm personally responsible for my business, then if somebody sued me for something, they could also sue for what my husband makes. And then that directly affects my home life. Like I could lose my house, I could lose my car, all that stuff. Whereas if you have the limited liability company, all of your personal assets are protected. So it's for your safety at that point that you have that type of business. And this is the first picture of a commission I actually made for someone, because my clients don't like getting professional shoots done for some reason. But determining how much to charge for your work. This is always a touchy subject for any artist, whether you do photography or you do like digital art or traditional art, drawing, pottery, costumes, props, you name it. All artists have to deal with this, like even musicians have to deal with how much you charge for your work. And I think that everybody's rates should vary. No one commissioner will charge the same as another commissioner. For instance, I am very well known for my bodysuit construction. I make bodysuits for people literally all over the world, and I also do it commercially for companies and stuff. So I make very high quality bodysuits. So I charge more for bodysuits than you would pay for like an AliExpress Zentai suit, or like something from a commissioner who like kind of knows how to make a bodysuit, but it's gonna like break apart after you wore it for like 2 times and you can't really wash it without it falling apart. Like that's not what I make. I make really quality stuff that they use for like legit things other than cosplay. So I charge what that's worth. And that also goes into my second point, like the amount you can charge varies depending on your expertise. When I started doing commissions a few years ago, I was not the seamstress I am today. Like it's not even close. Like I didn't know how to do like woodwork. It was just before I even started my leatherworking apprenticeship and learned how to make like suits of armor. I charged like literally half or less than what I currently charge, because I'm much better at what I do now, so my stuff has higher quality, and so I charge more. So if you're like a lower level creator, charging like a lower level versus charging what somebody who works for a Hollywood production company would charge per hour. Also, the different types of craftsmanship things, like they have different rates and stuff. Leatherwork is a dying art form. Very few people know how to work with leather and make it like functional suits of armor and everything. Like it's a very in-demand skill. And like I said, very few people have it. They don't if you go to college for costume design, they don't even teach how to do leather work in college anymore. Like the only way you can learn how to do it is through a private instructor. Like I'm lucky, his padre is a master craftsman and he took me on as an apprentice. That's how I learned how to do leather work. I didn't learn in my 4 years of college that I went to. I learned how to do it from some dude in the workshop in his backyard. So like it's really hard to learn some things, and because of that skill being rarer, I charge more for my leather work. It also it takes a lot more time and a lot more skill than sewing a bikini top or making a pair of jean shorts. It's a lot more challenging and everything, so I charge more per hour than I would for my normal sewing. Same thing with woodwork. Like woodwork, it's very dangerous. Like if you use a tool wrong, you could literally amputate yourself and stuff. So I charge more for woodwork and everything because of like the danger factor. Some people charge hourly, others charge like per giant commission. I have a typo in there. Yeah, there we go. It's entirely up to the commissioner and the client. Generally speaking, if I'm doing a smaller commission, I'll charge hourly. For instance, I just made a crown for the movie in Atlanta. I mentioned it earlier in this panel. The crown was super simple because I had a really low budget for the movie, and so I charged per hour. And I'm like, okay, well, this is only going to cost me, it's only going to take me like 3 hours to make this thing from start to finish, so I'll just charge you like my normal like hourly rate and everything for leather work. Rather than if I'm making an entire suit of armor for a client that's going to take like over like 50 hours of tooling or something like that, I'm going to charge like a blanket fee because I get bored after working on something for like 5 hours a day. And so like I'll be on Facebook like scrolling through looking at funny Pokemon memes because that's me. And so I don't charge an hourly rate for that. I kind of treat it like a salary job in that respect. So like the bigger projects, I think it's better to do like salary based, whereas the smaller stuff is better to do hourly based. But like I said, it's totally up to everybody else. Like you might want to do it the complete opposite way, in which that's totally cool. I'm just like really chill when it comes to commissions. Then this is another really important thing with balancing commission business. It's really hard to balance it with your day job and personal life. I'm a perfectionist with everything I do. If I decide I'm going to do something or like start something, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And I'm very like one-track mind type person. So when I decided to start doing commissions after I had my son, that's me and my son in the photo and everything. He's a lady killer already. But I live in Lynchburg, Virginia, and where I live, they have very low pay for a lot of jobs. And I couldn't find a job in my field locally, and so I would have had to go back to work as something that would pay minimum wage. Like I'd have to work in a mall, or I'd have to work in like a call center or something where I wouldn't be getting enough pay to justify having my child in daycare while I'm working. I'd literally be paying for gas in my son's daycare, and so that's very counterproductive to like putting funds into a household. So I decided to start doing commissions again for people. Basically, whenever I am in college or I live in a place where I can't find a job in my field, I fall back on commissions. That's kind of my thing. And so I did that again, and I care a lot about my clients. Like a lot of commissioners are very impersonal, and because I am a cosplayer myself, I want to make sure that people enjoy the cosplay I make for them like the most that they possibly can. Like I do my best to meet every deadline, to make it out of the highest quality materials I can afford in their budget and stuff. So I put a lot of work into it and whatnot, and that takes up a lot of time and everything. And when you're spending the amount of time that it takes to make like beautiful intricate costumes and stuff like that, like it can cut into your personal life. Like if you overbook yourself, a lot of it is just determining what you can do with your other responsibilities and stuff. I know a lot of people that do commissions, like actually I'm going to take this from a completely different standpoint than commissions. Like a lot of people start small businesses nowadays because of the way the economy is and everything, and like because companies like a lot of the legality things that have happened since people have come in office and changed like how healthcare works and stuff like that. A lot of companies cut people, and so a lot of people have been forming their own companies as a means to provide for their family. And a lot of the times when you are building any type of business from the ground up, generally speaking, if you're an adult doing this, you have a full-time day job. Like, you don't just wake up one day and decide, oh, I guess I'm gonna make my own business. I'm gonna somehow be able to pay my thousands of dollars of bills with this company I just decided to make today. Like, that's not how it works. Like, you have to be able to afford to live while creating your own business. And so most people have their complete 40-hour-a-week day job, and then they'll have like their costume commissioner on the side, or a wig stylist, or like an artist or something, or they'll be married to somebody who does that and then they do it full time. But balancing your real life with your small business is really important. Like, your business isn't going to care that you're creating your own business. Like, if you're late to work one day because you're pulling an all-nighter embroidering a coat, like, they're not going to care. Like, it's not work to them. To them, it's just like your pet project and everything. So you have to make sure that you don't do anything that can risk your day job. Like, whatever pays your bills is automatically the most important thing in your life other than your family and everything. And so, like, I've seen a lot of commissioners, they'll overbook themselves and they'll be like, oh yeah, I could totally make like 6 costumes this month. I'm gonna make like so much money and everything. And then like the end of the month comes around and they've only finished like 3 because they had to work overtime at their real job or something like that. And then they have like 3 angry clients that are going to spread like toxic rumors about them, and then they have like 3 happy clients and everything. Also, you shouldn't work yourself into the ground. A lot of people are workaholics. There are a lot of people who are also lazy. I fall into the workaholic category. I've had to pull all-nighters working on costumes before to meet deadlines. I have had to pull all-nighters for other things, like getting things around for like my guest schedule, for like my travel schedule and everything for conventions. It's really tiring and everything. I've like actually worked myself sick before and whatnot. And like, if you have a family like I do, like if you're raising a small child, like you don't ever get a day off. It doesn't matter if you actually scheduled one, like you have a like tiny human that depends on you. So you can't afford to get sick. Like you can't afford to need to sleep in until 10 to sleep off that I was up till 4 in the morning sewing. So just like making sure you don't book yourself to the point where you get sick and everything. And like that varies per person. Some people I know could literally go to like 3 cons a month and be totally okay. I can't do that. I max out at like 2 cons a month. I did 4 and 6 weekends last year, and I got so sick afterwards. I was literally bedridden for like a week. So it's just like finding your happy place and staying there. And it will vary, like as you grow as a person, like your ability to focus more time or less time on your own business would vary and everything. Like I did a lot more commissions at a time before I had my son than I do now. Like now I'm only able to do like 12 a year, whereas before I had my son, I could easily do like 24 a year, or if I was really pushing it, sometimes I could do up to 30. But I can't do that because I'm a stay-at-home mom now, and I realized that, and so I changed like my workflow and everything. Like, yes, I took a pay cut, but it's better to take a pay cut and not be in the hospital and actually spend time with your friends and family and be healthy and everything than have money and everything. Because if you have money but you're too sick to spend it, like what's the point of having money? Like seriously. So just things to think about. Does anybody have any questions about the business side of cosplay and like commissioning, anything? Or did I just like basically cover everything that people are interested in?
LLCs are the best. When you get a bit, it's always LLC because when people...
You want a mic?
Someone's calling. I don't know who.
Hang up on them and talk about LLCs.
No, this is not Brenda. I think you have the wrong phone number.
Oh, did I give you my phone?
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, you have the wrong phone number, man. everything when they sue you and they win, they can only get the stuff that belongs to the said LLC. So yeah.
Yeah, I was talking about that because that honestly, like,
when I was looking at what to register my business as, I had to like really read because like I live in Virginia. I mentioned that earlier. They have everything on a handy dandy little website for it, and it's surprisingly streamlined. Like Virginia is extraordinarily convoluted about a lot of technical things, and so I was really surprised they had this together and easy to read. It's like idiot proof, and I like that because I'm an idiot when it comes to like legal things. And so I read through everything, and I read through it with my husband too, because obviously like my husband's gonna like co-own things with me because I'm cool like that. And we were reading through it, and he's like, I don't like this whole like they can take everything we own and all of our future earnings. I'm not really feeling that, so let's just go with the LLC. And I'm like, yeah, I feel that too. I'd like to own a house someday. That seems like something I'd like in my life. So just like going through and like educating yourself is like really, really important, because there are like all these little loopholes that people exploit. Like basically just assume everybody's a horrible human being and everything, and will take advantage to some extent. Like it's horrible to have to say that, but everybody's too happy right now. So you just have to be like, you have to make sure you cover all of your bases and everything. So yes, LLC for the win. But yeah, if like nobody has anything else they want to like ask questions on, or you have something, can you take the mic so I can hear you and everybody else can? It's really loud.
They're doing a high Q&A next door.
Oh my.
Q&A.
excuse me, I'm sorry if you already answered this because I got here late. But how do you advertise your business?
I actually had a whole slide on that. It was in the beginning, but I love paraphrasing. So you can advertise, it depends on how you want to advertise. Do you want to do local or like internet business? Internet? Okay, internet, you want to do like a lot of social media marketing. I do, the majority of my commission business is actually through Facebook. But other than my Facebook, I have a Twitch, so people can actually like watch me stream. I actually got sponsored to stream, so that's why I have Twitch. But and then I have a YouTube, and I have an Instagram, and I have a Tumblr that I don't even remember the password for. Like all of the social media, it's really important for internet stuff. Also, do you do costumes or do you do like artwork? Oh, you draw? Okay, well that's a little bit different than doing costume design. But something that works good for every company is your client, like making sure your clients share your work and everything. Like I care a lot about that. Like if my clients are happy, I want them to show other people how happy they are. So like if you make like, I don't know, I like Blue Exorcist currently. If you make like a Blue Exorcist fan art for somebody and they really, really like it, and they're like private messaging you on Facebook about how awesome it is and thank you, you're so amazing, blah, blah, blah. Be like, oh, well, why don't you share it in this Blue Exorcist fan art group? Or share it on your private page or like your Instagram and all this other stuff so other people can see my work. It's word of mouth is fantastic on the internet and everything. Like I've gotten clients, because I've seen other client reviews on me, I've gotten clients from like outside the country contact me and stuff. Like I got commissioned to do a bodysuit for somebody in Canada earlier this year. I'm like, I don't know anyone in Canada. Like, why are they contacting me? There are plenty of people in Canada that know how to do things. And it was because they like Googled like good commissioners in North America, and my name was one of the first things that came up. And so they found me because like so many people wrote positive reviews on like different social media platforms or like their personal blogs, like live journals and stuff like that. And so like they found me through that. They didn't find me through my own personal work, which is normally pretty weird because normally people that ask me to make things for them have been fans of my cosplay, like my own personal stuff that I make for myself and whatnot. So like all of the plugging everywhere and everything. Like, did that answer your question a bit? Okay, cool. Do you have any other questions since you missed part of my presentation? No, you're good? Okay, well, that's my panel.